Hideo Kojima get his ideas. In this podcast, we take a deep dive into his brain and shed light on his creative process. Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure.
こんにちは、小島秀夫です。ポッドキャストプログラム秀夫小島プレゼンツ、ブレインストラクチャー、今回もスタートしました。
Hello, Hideo Kojima here with the podcast program Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure. Today is another special episode. It is a TGA special. So my partner for today, joining me, as always from Los Angeles, Jeff Keighley.Hello,
Mr. Kojima. Hello, everyone. This is such an honor for me to be here with you. Yes, I am the host of TGA, The Jeff's Answer, which is the name Hideo came up with for this segment, and I thought was really fun. And we've had so fun being on this podcast and having my segment, but we're going to bring it all together today for a special episode of just Hideo and I talking about all things video games.
はい。僕 TGA と名付けたんですけど。
So I named it TGA.After Jeff's The Game Awards. You must be pretty busy right now, right? TGA is December 8th?
Yes, that's right. We are very busy getting ready for TGA. We're really excited because this will be the first time in 3 years the fans will be able to come to the show as well and be in the audience. Because in 2020 we had to do it all over Zoom. And then last year we had just industry guests, but this year the fans will join us.And I remember, the last time you were with us in 2019, it was when we had the fans there and Green Day performing and you obviously winning the Best Game Direction Award. Last time I actually saw you in person was back then. I can't believe how long it's been. We're very excited to have the show and bring a lot of the industry together again. And we're working very hard right now on all the plans and preparations, both the nominations that will come out in November.And then obviously the live show in December. So yes, since you're on our advisory board, I know you've been always a big supporter of the show. And I was actually just looking this weekend that I posted on my Twitter, the first show back in 2014, we saw the clip of Kiefer introducing you at the first ever Game Awards. So thank you for all your support over the years of the show.
はい。もうでも3年前ですよね。
Yeah, it's already been 3 years. That was 2019.Norman and Lindsay came. Churches performed and Grimes too. I remember it like it was yesterday. There are very few staff members from Kojima Productions who actually got to experience it, but those who got to see it were very moved, and it was quite emotional. I hope that this year's TGA will have the same energy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a huge honor to have so many of the guests from around the industry join us, and it is that sense of community coming together and having the announcements on the stage and the fans reacting in the industry and then having a great, get together afterwards. I still remember the party last year or in 2019 when you were there and Norman was there and Churches, and we were all hanging out on the patio. I remember the balcony, and it was very, very fun to see everyone together. So yes, we'll be working hard on TGA and obviously hoping it's going to be a successful show. And speaking of all things TGA, this is the time of year when there are lots of rumors and people talk about things that they think might or might not happen at TGA. And we talked about this episode, Hideo, and I actually thought, although we're not going to talk much about TGA today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about rumors in the gaming industry because there are so many rumors all the time about games and on social media especially. And I thought maybe we would talk about some of the rumors that are out there and some of the truth behind some of those rumors. And I know your name is often mentioned related to many things out there on the internet. So I thought maybe you want to maybe talk about some rumors and see what's true and what's not?
もうネットはもうほぼ真実ではないですね。
Most of what's on the internet is not real. Information has been falsified and manipulated. On top of that,The users are the ones tampering with the truth, and everything is saved digitally. And those lies, the fake news, will be saved for centuries. And those will probably be considered the truth in the future, which is terrifying to think about. I touched on that in Metal Gear 2, but that was almost 20 years ago. So Jeff probably already knows this, but a while back, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was assassinated. A user posted my picture as a joke, and it spread like wildfire. People with authority saw it and continued to spread it. At that point, what first started as a prank had now become real. As this went viral across the globe, public news in certain countries picked it up and broadcasted it. It was ridiculous. The scariest part is, even if I tell people it's a lie, I can't erase it because it's digital. It's still there. What was originally a joke became worldwide news, so basically anyone can create fake news. That is alarming.
I agree. No, and I remember that was a very scary time when, your photo was out there and they said it spreads. And as you said, oftentimes when something gets corrected, this happens in any journalistic cycle. It's like people follow the news, not the correction, so that no one sees what really happens. And the same thing happens, I think, with a lot of these rumors, that someone will start with something that's not even true, and then it starts to spiral, and more people add on more crazy rumors, and it gets more and more out of control. And you sometimes don't know what's true and what's not true, or sometimes the fake news people believe to be true. And I see that often with even TGA. People will often talk about games that they think are going to be announced to TGA, and sometimes the game doesn't even exist. It's not even in development, but the users, hope maybe it exists. So they say, oh, it's coming to Game Awards, or it might have been canceled, and it was never going to happen. And I sometimes laugh because people make these lists of games they think are coming to TGA, and most times they're almost completely wrong. But sometimes people will even make, fake lists, and it's like they stole a page from our script, and it's like it's not true, but it's someone just pretending of things they hope to be true. So it's very scary, and I think it's hard because it creates expectations for fans of things that are never going to happen at the show. And then when we ultimately do the show, sometimes people are disappointed because those things don't happen.
これからちょっと、ジェフがいろいろ挙げてくれると思うんですけど。
Yes. So I think there are two types of fake news. Two types of sources, really. First of all, something cannot be born from nothing. There is always an original tweet or news or rumor that triggers it. So, the first type of fake news is exactly what Jeff just mentioned. They are the users or fans or industry people's expectations. They stem from "I hope this happens" or "I want them to make this" kind of sentiment. The other type is internet news, aka clickbait, wherein a person or an organization takes an original tweet or an interview article or whatever. The source doesn't matter, and they take a small part of that and put an exaggerated headline on it to hook readers. At this point, it's already pretty much fake news. So as I said, one is hopes and expectations, and usually contains non-existent claims in the headline. The other is lies written by individuals or an organization to gain followers or create viral content. After this point, the damage is just about the same. Only the fake headline, used to lure readers, spreads all across the world. The original tweet or source material is hardly there anymore. It's just a headline now. From here, the word spreads like a game of telephone. The headline will change forms and become even more grandiose. If it stopped there, eventually, word would die down. But a website like a blog that collects information will discover it and publish it on their site. Now, it will start to go viral very quickly. And the quote-unquote formal media will pick it up like they did with Mr. Abe's incident. Once it is published on there, the lies become the truth. You can't stop it now. You can't delete it because it's digital. It will remain for centuries. The biggest problem here is the lack of journalistic integrity. The media doesn't research the source material before publishing it. Media isn't supposed to do that. They usually call and ask around, "Is this true?" and then give the green light to publish. They don't do that anymore now. Nowadays, I tweet something, then the media will take that tweet and paste it somewhere and call it news. That's not how it should work. It's just a tweet. It's not meant to be news. Or at the very least, they should telephone and ask me why I tweeted what I said. But that doesn't happen in this era. So anyway, you have a few topics for us, Jeff.
Well, good. So we should talk about some of the things that are out there that have been some news stories that have mentioned or potentially involved you. But let's start with the first one. Now, there was a story that I saw on the internet a few weeks ago, and it was a rumor. And the headline of the story was that it was about Google Stadia, and it said Phil Harrison had rejected the development of a sequel for Death Stranding due to the end of the Google Stadia service. And I saw this and I was like very shocked by it. And everyone, if you don't know Google Stadia, the facts are that Google Stadia was a service that was a cloud-based gaming service started by Google. And it was just announced that Google is going to be shutting it down as of January 18th, 2023, in just a few months. And this platform was originally announced and released in 2019. Phil Harrison, who worked at PlayStation. I know you know him from PlayStation. He worked at Xbox. He joined Google, and they really were very ambitious in their vision of this gaming system where you wouldn't need a console. Everything would be streamed to you over the cloud. And so the service was happening, and it launched. It didn't find much success initially, and then they shut down their internal studio that Jade Raymond was running, who I know you know as well, Hideo. But there was this rumor going around that Google was working with a variety of game developers on a number of Stadia exclusive titles. And many people had thought that Hideo was, you were potentially working with Google on something, and there was a photo of you and Jade Raymond at one point, and people were wondering if maybe that could be Death Stranding was among those titles. And what this rumor said was that Phil had actually decided to stop production of a Death Stranding sequel, like you had a deal with Stadia. And this article seemed like it stated almost like a fact that this had happened and this was a secret, but it was never happening. And I thought it was very shocking to me to see this story, because knowing that you had, partnered with PlayStation on the first Death Stranding, the fact that, a sequel would be made for Stadia, I don't know how that would even work. And it seemed like that would be a very expensive project for them to do, to only make it in the cloud. And would it also come to PlayStation or other platforms? It just seemed very off base to me that, I know you're an independent studio and you could work with multiple companies, but it just seemed very odd to me that there would even be this suggestion that something like this would happen. I don't know why the rumor even started spreading, and I'm sure you wake up, Hideo, and probably see all these tweets in your feed of people saying, oh, this game was canceled, and what happened. And I don't know, I'm curious, when you see these rumors that don't, to me at least, seem to have any basis in truth at all, how do you react to that? Because you may want to tweet something or say something, but then you don't say something and you don't want to acknowledge it. So how do you handle that when people say things that are rumors about you?
Users send me stuff like this directly, like, hey, word is going around about so-and-so. It's constant, almost every day. And I don't know where the original source came from, so I can't say much about it. I don't know if Phil Harrison said that or not. All I can say is, I've known Phil for a long time, even back when he was at PlayStation and handling things on the European side. So we go back a long way, and I was rooting for him at Google and with Stadia, but unfortunately, the service is ending next year. That part is true. I've been on good terms with Phil Harrison for a long time, ever since the Metal Gear days when he was in Europe. The rumor that Death Stranding, more of a sequel, was in the works to be an exclusive title for Google is unfounded, and Phil Harrison ultimately rejecting that is quite impossible. I've never once said anything to Phil about wanting to create a Death Stranding sequel. I don't know who pulled this kind of information from where.
Yeah, I agree, because it felt like it was a rumor that for a while there have been rumors maybe Hideo would maybe work with Stadia in the future, and there was talk about, you met with Jade, and maybe they would, it's an independent studio, you could do something. But then when I saw the fact that it tied to Death Stranding, that was just so shocking to me, because people said, oh, well, maybe he'd make, a new game or a new IP, but then to think that you would take Death Stranding to Stadia exclusively, it just was very shocking to me. And I think you're right that there was no basis in truth at all to that, but someone creates the story and then it creates a headline because it's you and it's Death Stranding, so I think people will read it. And Google's never going to say yes or no. because they're going out of business for Stadia. So it sort of leaves, no one to say anything. And do you think, Hideo, like sometimes do you say like, maybe I should respond to this, or should I say something on Twitter, or do you think about that? Because then that can also create, a cycle where then you have to respond to everything. And then when you don't respond to something, people say, oh, well, it must be true because Hideo didn't say it was fake.
言うべきだと思う
Well, I think that maybe I should say something, but then that will become news. And if I deny something, people will take that and manipulate it. It's an endless game of cat and mouse. So right now, I choose not to tweet anything. And also, it's a little different from fake news, but there's a trend these days with headlines. For example, say there's a headline that states, Hideo Kojima had some drinks yesterday. Then they will either label it good news or bad news, always. What's supposed to happen in actuality is, a person will read my tweet that says, I had some drinks yesterday. And they should form their own judgment about what they feel about that tweet. But the people on the internet will create article headlines that fix whether that statement is good or bad. I don't know if it's out of spite, but they try to solidify the people's impression on the matter. Another example will be a headline that says, Hideo Kojima had dinner with a person from Sony. If it says bad news, then it's from the perspective of Microsoft. If it says good news, then it's PlayStation's perspective. Regardless, it should be up to the individual to decide whether something is good news or bad news. The internet can control that though. That's pretty scary and something I need to be wary of, so I choose not to say too much. And well, regarding this rumor with Phil Harrison, I haven't read the source material, but people shouldn't say he rejected a Death Stranding solo player game or whatever. You don't even know if he said that or not. And it adds a whole different meaning on top of that if you attach the words good or bad to it.
No, I agree. I think it's one of these things that these stories come out and you can't comment on everything because there's so many rumors and then fans don't know what to think or what's real. But yes, I think we can state factually that there was no deal to cancel, and that was the thing that a lot of fans were rumored, and it was clearly not true. Now there was another big rumor that came out last year that I was sort of a part of too, and this was around a project which was codenamed Abandoned, and this was supposedly a survival horror game that was somehow maybe related to the game Silent Hill, and people somehow thought that I was involved in it, and maybe you were involved, Mr. Kojima. And this was through a company that was called Blue Box Game Studios. And I got involved in this a little bit too, because the creator started contacting me and saying he wanted to share something with me at one of my shows. And what they said at the time was that Abandoned was this PS5 game that was in development that was going to take advantage of PS5 to deliver movie-like first-person gameplay. It was originally scheduled to be released back in 2021. It still hasn't been released, but they put out this playable demo that they were actually released on PlayStation 5. And it was the first trailer or teaser for it was on the official PlayStation YouTube channel. So people thought it was somehow kind of an official game. And people thought that it was maybe somehow connected to the Silent Hill franchise. And maybe Mr. Kojima was even somehow involved in this, or many people said at the time, I think, that they thought maybe this Blue Box Game Studio was similar to Moby Dick Studio. It was sort of this fake studio that Hideo had created, with a fake developer, much like Moby Dick with Joaquin Mogren, to suggest that, maybe this was a secret and an elaborate ruse that was a game that Hideo was playing with the fans. And, the rumors just kept going, and time and time again, I think the developer wasn't even really being honest with people about what was going on with the game. And Hassan, who was the creator of this game, supposedly has never really made any public appearances. I got to speak to him actually a few times on the phone, and his initials, even HK, people thought that matched Mr. Kojima's name. So there was some speculation that his true identity was Hideo Kojima. And then he released a video message saying that his existence was real and he wasn't fake, he wasn't tied to Kojima Productions. And I think even at one point on his website, he had to say that wasn't related to Hijima Productions, and he had to say that on his actual website because there were so many rumors about it. And my first impression was I didn't really know what was real, and sometimes even though we're good friends, sometimes there maybe even I was like, oh, is Hideo really doing something secretly and didn't even tell me about it, and this could be really big mystery. And it was amazing that his initials were the same as Hideo Kojima, and it was this studio no one had heard of, yet they put out a teaser on the PlayStation channel on YouTube, and they had this playable demo on PS5. So I'm like, oh, it seems like a lot for a new studio to be able to create all this content with no one had heard of them before. But as I looked into it, and the first time I talked to Hassan, it was really clear that it was odd. Like, I didn't quite understand what was happening, and I could never get any information on the game. And he kept saying, I want to show a trailer at your event and showcase the game. And I kept saying, well, can I see the game? Can you show me anything? And he could never show me anything on the game. And I'm not even sure that there is a game there. So there was a lot of rumors and speculation around it. And I'm sure you must have heard about this, Hideo, at some point, right? When did you first hear about this supposed abandoned game?
いや、これね、最初わからなかったさ、
Well, this one I really didn't understand at first. Users just kept sending me pictures of this Hassan. They still send me collages and deep fake images, like 20 a day. It's really quite a nuisance.
迷惑というか。
This has been going on for almost 2 years now. And well, Jeff, you remember when we did that Moby Dick thing? You were in on the whole thing, and that was pretty fun. But people should know that I wouldn't do the same thing twice. I've never spoken with Hassan. The game is yet to be released, right? I don't think there's much he could do or say at this point, but if he releases the game, then people might understand. So maybe he should just hurry up and release it.
出したらいいんじゃないですかね。収まると。
It'll die down after that. Plus, I'm not involved with it in any way. I don't know who started this rumor, but this is the better type out of the two I mentioned earlier. I think this is fake news based off of users' wishes and hopes. So, Mr. Hassan, I'm sure things weren't easy, and as a creator, I think it's okay to dismiss it completely. But now that there's been a buzz and things have gone viral, you should take advantage of it. If you create something good and share it with everyone, they will learn the truth. I think maybe that's what you should do. Fake news is a bad thing, but now that we've both gained attention from all of this, let's boost morale and create something good. Once they have made something, the users who play it will understand it's not Silent Hill, and I'm not involved, but they will still grow to love their game. I think there's a way to turn fake news around positively. I say this, but I've never met the guy.
But it creates, I think also a lot of pressure, because he started getting, the death threats and things like that of saying, tell us what it really is, and create a lot of pressure, because I think they didn't really have a game. So there was all this buzz, as you said, that he could ride the wave. But I think then they had so much pressure because the expectation was so high from the fans that, they said it's been over a year now, and I think they've sort of disappeared. And I think fans stopped trusting them because they didn't prove anything and they didn't show anything. So yeah, I think it's a great story about, I think, people creating so much hype that an independent developer, may have been not fully truthful with everyone about it, but then now created so much attention around them that it's very hard for them to ever deliver against the expectation. So another thing, Hideo, that's been talked about a lot is, there are lots of companies buying each other and lots of merging and acquisitions, and of course Microsoft and Activision. A lot of people are talking about that now. And one thing that I think is always unique about Kojima Productions is that you are an independent studio. And when you founded the studio, obviously Sony backed you initially, and Andy House and Herman gave you the engine, and that was kind of the partnership that began. But you're still an independent studio, and I know there's lots of rumors out there about which companies you're working with, and obviously you announced this summer that you're going to work with Microsoft on a project. But I think that creates a lot of speculation about, well, is he still working with Sony? Who else is he working with? And one thing I think is interesting is in the film industry, directors can work with multiple studios and have different studios making different films. Like Guillermo can do a movie for Netflix and then do one for Fox, and that's okay. But in the game industry, it's very different that people expect people to, be only making things for one system. And again, Sony obviously gave you a lot of support in starting the studio. But maybe you could talk a bit about some of those rumors, because I think there's lots of talk, and there was a lot of talk for a long time about maybe we're going to work with Xbox. And you're in a unique position now to sort of, it looks like partnering with, Sony and Xbox and maybe even other partners on games. But I'm sure there's you get lots of comments about that and the rumors around those deals as well, right?
です。まずちょっと、多くの人が誤解をしてると思う。
Okay, so first of all, I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding about Kojima Productions. I created this company in December of 2015 after leaving Konami. It was 100% out of my pocket. No funding from anyone whatsoever. So we're independent. At the start, we needed to make a name for ourselves and create a big title. And the person who was really there for me was Andy from Sony. And the first title was Death Stranding. I'm still on good terms with Sony. I always have been. And Kojima Productions studio is in Shinagawa, right next to the Sony headquarters building. And we're also pretty close to the SIE PlayStation building. So people tend to think we are part of Sony, but I was the one that found this studio space by myself. The studio was not prepared by Sony. It just happened to be in front of Sony building by coincidence. I was like, ooh, I found a great place, and then realized Sony was right out front. Maybe it would make sense for a studio to be inside the Sony building. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot has their own office too. Before, it was normal for companies like that to have their offices inside the movie studios. But in my case, I am in an office space that I found on my own. That's why we're indies, completely. And well, I have a long career in the game industry, and from my Konami days, I have a lot of friends at first parties like Microsoft and Nintendo. And as you all know, I made an announcement with Microsoft. We were able to do that because of our mutual trust and the relationship we have with each other. So let me reiterate that we are indies. We have no affiliations whatsoever, and we are not backed by anyone. And we are on good terms with everybody in the industry. But I think, Jeff, you already know that. I haven't worked with Nintendo lately, but I have a good relationship with them. And every day, I am approached by offers from all over the world to buy our studio. Some of those offers are ridiculously high prices, but it's not that I want money. I want to make what I want to make. That's why I created this studio. So as long as I'm alive, I don't think I will ever accept those offers.
Yes, no, I think as you said, you're in an enviable position that you've earned through many decades of making great games, that everyone wants to work with you. And in many ways, after leaving Konami, I really encourage you to be independent. Just like, the Game Awards, we don't just go on YouTube, we're also on Twitch, and we're on all these other platforms. And I think you to be in control of your own destiny is something you've earned, and now hopefully allows you to, work many places and build many games, for many platforms and reach more audiences. And that, extends not even just games, but if you end up, hopefully doing things in streaming or movies or other things down the road, it's like you can expand and, build many different types of things independently. So yeah, I laugh when I see a lot of those rumors. And, now it's obviously out in the open that you do have a partnership with Xbox too. So hopefully it just means, what I look at is like, hopefully it means we're just going to have more games from you and, more projects, which is exciting. So we can't wait to see what you're cooking up, which we won't get to talk about today, I'm sure.
Well, you know what? People are going to pick this up and slap on a fake headline, and it'll become fake news. They're going to twist my words around from this podcast. Should we do another TGA special after that? From everything I said today, they're going to pick up, I'm on good terms with Nintendo, and start saying like, Hideo Kojima is making Smash Brothers because he's good friends with Mr. Sakurai. This is definitely going to make headlines.
Yes, Hideo is still in touch with Nintendo.
Well, I am in contact with them. We have a relationship.
Yeah, no, he said everyone comes because he said it's the the positive hope of people are so excited. Oh, Hideo might make more games. So it's like, oh my God, maybe he'll make another game. Maybe new Boktai coming for Switch.
出ない。
Probably not Boktai. Well, this isn't fake news, but every single day from all over the world, I get messages saying, hey, make a new Metal Gear, or PT, or Boktai, or Zone of the Enders. I take this as a positive thing, but also, as adults, everyone should know that this isn't going to happen, right? But they still send me stuff like this. I guess it can't be helped. In this day and age, their words reach me directly.
Yeah, this would be a very big news. And there you have it. Brain Structure is looking to hear from our listeners too. If you have a message for Mr. Kojima, if you have thoughts on this program, or if you have ideas for themes or guests for future episodes, please send them our way. The link to the message form can be found in the episode description. We're waiting to hear from all of you.
はい。ジェフ、今日はありがとうございました。
Yes, thank you, Jeff. This was our first TGA special, but it was densely packed with some borderline content, so I don't know how much of this we can air. But I hope you all enjoyed it. See you again on the next episode of Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure.
さようなら。
Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure is a production by Spotify Studios in association with Kojima Productions and Fam Inc. TGA, the Jeff's Answer MC, Jeff Keighley. Narrator, Owen Maki. Music, Silent Poets. Visual design, Meiji Kuro. Producer, Hiro Furuki. Director, Kohei Takizawa. Executive producer at Spotify, Asami Sekine. Special thanks to Kojima Productions, Ayako Terashima, Masafumi Chiba, Miki Suga, and Aki Saito. Hosted by Hideo Kojima.
Did you hear that? The TGA special was something special, huh? I guess now you know the truth from Hideo Kojima himself. On the next episode, Hideo Kojima will read your messages and questions that were delivered to our mailbox, along with his selection of recent favorite music. Your message might be selected, so don't miss it.